blessed morning to you out there. The program is the Dailies on Echo Television International, where we'll be keeping you updated with quite a number of stories on the paper. So we encourage you to sit tight as we go through some of the stories, and then you can do well to drop your comment or your contribution on any of the story that is of interest to you this morning. I am Sarah Elisha Dasham, and I'll be doing this alongside Rachel Tanzi. Good morning.
Good morning, Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great, thank you so much. And all right, we'll go right into the paper, starting with the Punch newspaper. The big story on the Punch newspaper: Nigeria's debt jumped by 75% in 3 months, hit 87 trillion naira. With the writer, how CBN loans to federal government, new debt, promissory note raises public debt by 37 trillion naira between April and June. Tinubu's reform will improve debt sustainability, DMO assure Nigerians, as the latest figure overshoot agency projection by 10 trillion naira. You can read more detail on page 2. Electricity consumers slam federal government over the power grid collapse, even though light has been restored some part of the country. So you can do well to read more detail of what happened that led to that on page 18 of the Punch newspaper. Manufacturers and good import group $6.7 billion in 6 months. This is a report coming. You also can see Tinubu orders NAMI's retirement, appoint Adedeji FRS chair. You can find more of the story on page 18. Tinubu promised to tackle poverty and complete the East-West road. You can find more detail on page 27. Alake has provided qualitative leadership for ACMEC. This is coming from the Anglican primate. And then also NURTW President, 21 others arrested for alleged killing. Remember, there was a little misunderstanding in the fraction in Abuja. You can do well to read more detail on page 4. Zero allocation, Ogun local government chair impeached. Lampos Abiodun. You can find that also on page 8, and that is all on the Punch newspaper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Tinubu names Zach Adedeji acting FIRS boss, appoints Yakubu NSIPA National Coordinator, Ahmed heads NCFRMI. You can find more details on page 8. Federal government constitutes task force to tackle diphtheria outbreak. Alleged 100 million naira palliative, Senate accused NLC of blackmail. Federal government working out details on flight resumption to UAE. Statement coming from the Minister of Aviation, Keyamo. You can find more details on page 2. The big story on the paper: current hardship may lead to serious crisis, PDP warns APC. We have the Board of Trustees may say Supreme Court can't correct PEPC judgment, kicks against move towards one-party rule. You can find more details of the big story on page 5. Federal government has no choice but to fund universities. It is constitutional. ASU is saying that. Hoodlums behead Labour Party chieftain in Abia. You can find more details on page 26. Ndidi Olumelu loses as appeal court affirms Labour Party candidate as Delta rep. We have World Food Program pledges $2.5 billion to fight hunger in Nigeria. We hope that this money gets to go to the people who really need it. You can find more details on page 23. And there is a header: crisis, Tinubu gets proposal for Ministry of Livestock. The writer under the story says Ganduje committee submits report. I will reconstruct it. East-West Road, LMA axis, President says. You can find more details on page 12. Makinde approves Ayebola as new Aseyim. Sound of Ogbomosho completes traditional rites and enters palace. You can find more details on page 12 and 22. Now we have a picture story showing Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu of Lagos State and daughter of the deceased Dokumbo Williams during the governor's condolence visit to the family of the late Akintola Williams at his Ikoyi residence in Lagos yesterday. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
Well, looking at the story, Rachel, the headers crisis, and then the fact that Tinubu is getting a proposal for the Ministry of Livestock. This talk about having a ministry started last year during the administration of Buhari where we saw some Islamic cleric coming out to actually say the fact that there is a need to have a ministry for headers, because it seems as if they have been left out in some of the things that are happening. But there are quite a number of questions Nigerians will ask. Why do we need a ministry for headers?
Yes.
Secondly, we're still fighting the issue of headers and farmers clash. And maybe this is the reason why the president is getting a proposal like that to actually look into it, even though the proposal is yet to be signed and everything. But there are quite a number of questions running through the minds of Nigerians, because especially looking at the plight of farmers, and if we're going to have a ministry for headers, and it is also right to have a ministry for farmers as well, because these are also two different, they are all farming eventually, it's all under agriculture. So why don't we have them falling under the agri ministry? Why do we need different ministries for this? So quite a number of questions. If this is to ease the clashes, then maybe let us see what some of the prospects will come out of all of this. But then right now, all we have to do is keep our fingers crossed and then see what will unfold out of this ministry meant for the headers. Why do headers need a ministry? What are they intending to achieve? Another thing. These are questions that will be running in the minds of Nigerians, especially farmers. Like I said earlier, imagine farmers whose farm has been, you know, destroyed, coming from headers.
Yeah.
There is pain that will be coming from farmers. So, well, we do not know how this will unfold, but our fingers are crossed, and we hope that eventually it will be for the better, that everybody will be carried along, not just carrying one part of the ministry and leaving another part of the ministry. Headers are important as well as farmers are important. So let us see how this whole story will unfold eventually.
So just when we're saying that the government is merging MDAs, and we are saying that the Ministry of Interior have been merged with another one, we saw that on the papers. Exactly, yes, exactly. They've been merged together, and now you're wondering, why are we now having a Ministry of Livestock? Are we really, I keep saying it, we need to see a government that when they say something, they mean it. When you are saying we want to cut the cost of governance, it is all inclusive of every other thing that will make the cost of governance to go high. Because by the time we now have a Ministry of Livestock, we now have an office that has been created, and that office needs funding. That office will now need a minister. That office will now need every other thing for it to function as a proper ministry. So when you see something like that, I keep wondering, I said, do our government really, really want growth in this country? Because they keep taking steps that makes us wonder and ponder, and feels like we are taking one step forward and 10 steps backward when it comes to the things we plan on doing in the country. Sele, I don't think there is a need for a Ministry of Livestock. We have the Agricultural Ministry, and you can't make livestock look like it is an independent something that has nowhere it can exist under, as if it cannot function under the Agricultural Ministry. So it's just for you, if this is a problem, you've been setting up committees to look into issues. Why don't you set up committees if this is an emergency, if this is something that needs to be tackled quickly? Then you set up a task force for it. You set up every other thing that you need to put in place to make sure that whatever is the problem concerning headers crisis, what is the situation between the clash when it comes with the farmers and headers, and then you do something to solve the situation, because this crisis is not supposed to be permanent. But when you make a Ministry of Livestock, is it going to be a temporary ministry? Because this is a problem that can be resolved. So when it's being resolved, are you going to dissolve the ministry, or is it going to, because if this is the reason behind thinking we need a ministry for livestock, then this problem, are we planning on allowing it to be a permanent problem? Because if it is temporary, which it should be, and it should be solved, then there is no need for that. All you need to do is to set up bodies and committees and put people in place that will come in and tackle this issue still under agriculture. We have so much to focus on, and I think Nigeria doesn't need another ministry as it is now. We have enough ministries with the resources and the capacity to be able to deal with every problem that is going on in the country. Is just for us to outline our priorities. Okay, which one is more, which problem needs all hands on deck immediately. Let's solve it and move past it, but not to keep making our governance bogus in a way that we can't even cut down the cost of governance if we think another ministry is what is needed to be set up. I just hope that the government do the needful.
You know, Richard, it's quite looking at it, because just on the punch, we've seen that our debt is really about 87 trillion naira, and in 3 months it has jumped to about 75%. So that is just like you said, I do not think there is a need for creation of another ministry, even though it's just a proposal. But these are just, you know, concerns Nigerians to be expressing. Because when we say proposal, definitely need to pass through various process before it is being signed eventually. So we hope that the president will take all of this into cognizance, and then we'll see that better things are being looked into. Well, let's take a look at the Friday Leadership newspaper, starting with a big story on the Friday Leadership. 2 weeks after 180 billion naira palliative, hardship persists in states. With the rider, we see governors food drag as resident question distribution processes. Senate carpet NLC over alleged 100 million naira palliative. You can find that on page 4. And questions become richer, the fact that what is delaying this distribution of this palliative? If the government had made it clear on the paper, I mean, this is over 2 weeks ago, the government said they give this money. That's talking about the 5 billion naira that was being sent to various states. And then, yet, states are still, you know, crying. We saw Kwara where some hoodlums, you know, went in there, boggled into the White House, and then went away with some of the palliatives. And then, of course, if you ask these hoodlums, if you get opportunity to ask them the question, they'll tell you they were hungry. But then I keep saying that this is one of the states that have tried its best for its residents from the very onset, when the removal of the fuel subsidy was removed. We saw the governor trying what he can do on his own part, reducing the days for civil servants to go to work, giving them about 10,000 naira allowance, even though it wasn't much, but at least it will go to a little bit, you know, to 1 or 2 steps, you know, to help them tackle their immediate need. But then this is the same story where we are seeing hoodlum. We saw that in Adamawa State, and then just like you say, these are things that are like ripple effect. When it started in one state, before you realize it, other states will start asking, okay, so there's food, all right, let's go buckle into these places, and this is not what we want. But of course, you cannot rule out the fact that residents are hungry and they're asking questions. I mean, this story of NLC and National Assembly have been going back and forth on our papers, the issue of the alleged 100 million naira being given to them. While Nigerians are still crying, they're yet to even see the money. We saw when NLC said, imagine 12 people sharing a bag of rice, and then how much is how many measures are in a bag of, 50 kg of, rice, for instance? It's not much eventually. So there are quite a number of concerns surrounding this issue of sharing of palliative, who have gotten and who have not gotten it. But I think it is imperative and important for the governors of the various states to come out and let their residents know what is happening. Already we're having concern here in Plateau State. We remember that recently there was a 500 million naira that was being given by the First Lady for those who have been affected by insecurity. But here we're saying that there is an Islamic group here in the state that is coming out to say that they are going to protest because they have been ruled out of sharing this money, even though we've not seen on the paper how it was being shared, how many people got those 500 families, how many people got this family there, how did the state come up with, do they have a register for the people that were being affected and all of this. So I think it's quite a lot that the governors know that this is a time that it's very sensitive, so anything can actually trigger protests or any riot eventually, and this is not what Nigeria need at a time like this. So I hope that the governors will come out, clearly state out what has been given to you, who are the people that got it, if there is a social register in this various state, who and who, because when you're being transparent and accountable, there will be no need for people talking left, right, and center saying they want to go on a protest or a riot. So our fingers are crossed, and we hope that the governors of the various states that have gotten this palliative should come out and say, yes, we have gotten this and this and this is what we have done. I think this will go to a long way to calm the tension in these various states where people are planning to do anything out of the normal.
No, Stella, if only we have a transparent government, we will not speculate. And I believe that this is always the challenge we are facing as the common people in Nigeria, that we have no idea what is going on. Information remains with the few, and they do whatever they want to do with it. Is what they give back to you, is what you make use of. Now the question is, have all these states gotten this 5 billion from the federal government? That is the question. Because it's one thing for the federal government to say we have given, it's another thing for the state government to say they have received. And I believe that if the federal government have given, they will be able to say we have given. Now, this silence is coming from every level. The federal government haven't said whether they have disbursed these funds, and every state have gotten, and the state government haven't said we have received these 5 billion palliatives coming from the federal government. Talk more of the trucks, the 5 trucks of rice to every state. Nobody is saying whether they've received it. The federal government are not talking about if they are done completely distributing it, and the state government are not saying we have received it. So it just keeps us in a position of speculating. Have they received it? Have they started sharing it? And if they have, who are they giving it to? And why are we not hearing anything about it? These are all the questions we will keep asking ourselves. And until we have a transparent government who are willing to come out and tell us, okay, this is the process, this is what we are doing, this is how we are going to go about it, this is how much we've received so far, and this is how much is left to come in, and all of that, then before we'll be able to make sense out of all these things. It's more than 10 weeks ever since the talk of palliative started in this country, with the first subsidy removal, first starting with the 500 billion at the federal that was approved, that will be targeting 12 million households, and also talking about the 8,000 that will be going, that is from the 500 billion. We are yet to see anything like that, Sele. Now the federal government decided we are taking it down to the state level. From 500 billion, we are now down to 180, and we are still not seeing it. Nothing is big. And then you wonder, when will it go out? And then the question the question on everybody's mind is, do we even need these palliatives? Why don't we take this money and do what everybody will benefit from? And the simple thing is that fix the refineries. Fix these refineries. We are even having silence concerning how much have been saved from the subsidy so far. What is the government planning on doing with this money? These are, so far now, is up to over $1 trillion naira. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to channel it into what every Nigeria will benefit from? Because when we are talking about a population of over 200, and you're targeting only 12 million households, no matter the multiplication of an average of 5 people, we are not looking at still meeting up to half of our population as a country. So I just hope that the government wakes up and do the needful, because so far so good. They haven't showed us that they are feeling our pains. We are still waiting and hoping to see them really show us that they are feeling their pain, but then nothing has been put in place so far. Nothing is rolling, nothing is working concerning palliative. And I just hope that states are not hoarding this palliative, because very soon we will hear about what happened in Kwara, happened in another state, because the moment an information should go out there that these state governors have received this palliative, of course, for the cash, nobody knows where to go and get it. But when it comes to these grains, for example, once the news is out there and somebody has approved that this is the location, we remember the one that happened before. It wasn't even, this is from NEMA, this is a relief, not even palliative from the government. And people heard about it and they went and they destroyed these warehouses. And talk more of what will happen subsequently if they should get the knowledge that perhaps the government have this somewhere and they are hiding it. Even if it's not, we will see that people who have warehouses, be it governmental or not governmental, are in danger of looting. So I just hope that the government wakes up and do something, and just don't put your citizens in a situation where only the few get to benefit from what millions should have access to.
Honestly, Rachel, we look forward to this, because sometimes when you talk about fixing of the refineries, it sounds as if Nigerians, it's not like it's a broken record. You keep talking and talking
but
then one thing is for sure, Nigerians will not stop talking. They'll keep speaking until something is being done eventually. So we hope that the government will wake up to their responsibility to cater for the needs of their citizens eventually, because that is how you'll be measured whether you're a good leader or not. Well, let's continue looking at other stories still on the Friday Leadership newspaper. First class accountant Adedeji replaces Nami as a FRS chairman. You can find that on page 7. We have 431 billion naira to pay road contractors. This is coming from Umahi. You can find that on page 6. Nigeria has no business with poverty. This is coming from Tinubu. He said that yesterday that neither the River State nor Nigeria has any business being associated with poverty, insecurity, or underdevelopment. He also assured that under his leadership, the narrative will be permanently and positively changed in a country that is blessed with, a lot of resources. Well, we look forward to seeing what the president hopes to do in regards to that. Labour Party showing card trade words over party defeat in the 2023 polls. And, Richard, I was opportune to listen to the interview where we saw Wale Soyinka talking in South Africa. He was being invited, and he, a lot of Nigerians have raised concern with the fact that Wale Soyinka tend to be having something personal with the Labour Party. I mean, we know that the Labour Party came third, not even second. So it's expected that also talk about, the PDP and also the Labour Party, but it seems to be, hammering so much on the Labour Party. Of course, he is entitled to his opinion, but a lot of Nigerians are expecting that as a senior statesman, you should be maybe non-partisan when you come to the issue of politics. Yes, express your view, but then you should be promoting peace. You should be promoting unity. You should be promoting, patriotism eventually, because we're all Nigerians. So I keep saying this, regardless of which party, Nigeria is not for a party. Nigeria belongs to everybody. So regardless of which party emerges as the winner, it is expected. We've seen other people coming out to say, let us support the president regardless of which party you belong to. Support the president. Let him achieve what he needs to achieve, because he needs the support of everybody at this point in time. But then when you begin to hear people talking ill about a particular party, it begins to, make you to judge them in a particular way. What do you stand for in a country like this? I know when he mentioned the Yoruba word, he said Bajue. That was what happened in the Labour Party, which means pretense. But quite a number of people say that if there is anybody who has pretended during the election, was the INEC, because they promised one thing and then did another thing. Yeah. When you over and over, they promised Nigerians that the election is going to be free and fair. We're going to do that electronically. But we saw the reverse was the case. And even the court saying that INEC is under no, obligation to actually transmit the result electronically. But Nigerians know what they heard and know what they are expecting. So we do not want a situation where certain words begin to trigger, particularly maybe hatred. Or there was a time where he spoke about the election and they were having a back-to-back with Amanda on the issue of that. So Nigerians are hoping that you will be transparent in things. Nigerians are hoping that as a senior man, you should come out and speak things that will unite Nigerians, regardless of whether you are an obedient or you are not an obedient. Nigeria belongs to all of us. So we are looking forward to seeing, when we see our statesmen having the opportunity to speak to the world, they should speak positive about their country and about leaders also, regardless of which party they belong to.
Of course, Stella, like that just summarizes it all. When you have the opportunity, when you have a voice that is loud, you should speak what will unite Nigeria. And I believe are failing. I keep saying that there are statements that shouldn't even come from certain people. There are certain things that shouldn't even be heard of, that this person, we've had that issues with our ministers, with our senators. You have the voice. Why don't you speak light? Why don't you speak peace, unity into the country? So I'm just looking forward to where Soyinka will use his loud voice to not, in a lot of ways, this whole back and forth of the 2023 poll is over. In a lot of ways, we might just decide to drag it and overjuice it and stretch the whole talk, but it is what it is, and it is now. And we have the PEPT have said this is our ruling, this is our verdict, and that is what it stands as it is now. Whatever will be the outcome in the future, whether they will go forward, that's for Labour Party and PDP, to the Supreme Court, is not what it is now. What we are having right now is that Tinubu is the president of this country, and what anybody out there who has a voice should be more concerned about is telling Nigerians to do what will bring the growth. I believe this is the time where Sri Lanka should be out there now, calling out the president concerning palliative, calling out the president concerning your economic policies and all of that. This is a time where we can put that behind us and now start using our voice to call the government, say we have our eyes on you and we're looking forward to you to work, not concerning what happened in the 2023 polls. It's still a big deal for a lot of people, but we should move past that and start looking into the future of Nigeria.
Of course. Well, let's see other stories still on the leadership. Libya flood death toll hits about 11,000 to 20,000 amnesty because it seems the sea keep bringing more corpses. Well, we really sympathize with the Libyan government and we hope that something will be done, even though the president has promised his support to the Libyan government. TCM blames the Greek collapse on fire outbreak. You can find more on page 91. Biden's son Halter indicts of federal gun charges. You can find more of that story on page 85. We have a picture story where we can see the national chairman and also the national president committee on national conference on livestock reform, still, talking about the proposal that will be submitted. So you can do well to grab the Friday leadership and read more detail of any of the story that is of interest to you.
On the Guardian newspaper, sports stars made in Nigeria on loan to the world. And when I look at the pictures of these sports stars, I mean, this is a little bit misleading because few of them were actually made in Nigeria. But for our sports lover, you can find the details on page 4 and 5. Catholic Church priests recount how they survived Kafanchan seminary attack. Despite $7.5 billion investment, TCN lapses wrought push grid collapse to 138 in 10 years. You can find more details on page 6. At the downside of the Guardian newspaper, APC's suppressive rule may stoke serious crisis coming from the PDP Board of Trustees, warning the APC. Tinubu Abiodun extol Alake's leadership virtues at 80. Why Abuja, Lagos airports are two most expensive facilities in Africa. If you want to know why, find the details on page 20, and that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
Richard, I think we would love to take a break, even though the big story actually got me a little bit cracked. Yes. Where we are seeing made in Nigeria on loan to the world. Well, I hope that we utilize the stars that have been made in Nigeria, because I mean I've seen where like the likes of Plateau State, where we see he's actually calling on Mikel Obi to actually see what he can advise on how they can use his skill, and then how he can also come into the state and also help upcoming stars in the sport. So I think these are what, because believe me, Rich, I think these are some sectors that have quite a lot of cash that we're yet to actually, look into it, talking about sports, entertainment, and all of that. Well, let's take this break, and when we come back, we continue with the conversation. Please stay tuned with us. When we come back, we'll open the phone lines and also hear what your views are concerning any of the story on the dailies. Please stay tuned.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice.
welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the Dailies on Echo Television, where we've been looking at various stories that are ranging on the paper, from the issue of the palliative that some states are yet to get, and then quite a lot of mixed reaction coming from the citizens of these various states. And also we're seeing a proposal that has been submitted to the president on the issue of having a ministry for livestock. So quite a number of stories on the paper. We'd love to hear from you. Before we went on the break, we're also looking at the sports sector, where we have some stars that, according to the paper, were made in Nigeria but unknown to the world. So we'd love to also hear what your feedback are concerning any of the story. Our number is displayed on your screen. You can do well to call us and, contribute concerning any of the story that is relevant on the paper. Remember to summarize your point in a minute so other callers can also get the opportunity to air their view. I still have Rachel Tanzi with me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
All right, let me give you the opportunity to say one or two things concerning the story.
Okay, yes.
The Guardian newspaper.
Yes, made in Nigeria on loan to the world. And then I feel that a lot of the big names that are out there, we had an era, of course, of Nigerian athletes, especially when it comes to footballers, that were made in Nigeria and remained in Nigeria. The likes of Kanu, Kocha, and the rest of them, they remained in Nigeria. But we're having a new wave of football stars now that were not made in Nigeria and are definitely on loan to where they were made. That easy. They were not even on loan to anywhere. They decided to choose where they will be able to achieve their goals. And Sela, it is very embarrassing for you to see something like FIFA paying directly our Super Falcons into their bank account.
Thank God it's Friday and the day the Lord has made. I want to talk on the issue of palliative. I've been saying it and I want to be very, very...
And we have international organizations knowing about it. You will see our players complaining about only being paid 10 days of being in camp when they travel, or 5 days out of the how many days they have spent, and all of that. And we have seen over the years that our players don't get compensated properly when it comes to football games ever for a very long period of time. We have the Eagles complaining that they have not received their full money or one money being trapped. This has been the issue, and now we are having a wave of football stars rather, that more than money, they need records. They want to break records. They want to be in the on the world platform, and they find themselves that in a position where their country is not even putting them there in the first place, because they want to be able to play for countries that they will be able to have world trophies, because it's not just about the money, it's also about making a name. Yeah, these people want to be titans, these people want to be unforgettable and all of that. So we find a wave now of stars that want to stay where they are relevant, where they will be able to make big names. And I believe that this is what is happening now, and that is why we are having stars bearing our name. We are seeing Saka, we are seeing Daily Ali, we are seeing many out there that are bearing Nigerians' name, and they are Nigerians, but decide to play for other countries, because who would want to be putting out their effort out there, and then tomorrow your country is not paying you what you have worked for, or tomorrow you're having backlogs of them, or tomorrow you're being told you're only getting 5 days allowance while you have spent 10 days in camp and training and all of that. So these are the things that I believe that our sports federation have to fix in Nigeria. NFL have to fix. If not, we will keep seeing stars that are doing great, that could, if they were to form a team, will put Nigeria on the spot, but you are not putting measures for them. So no wonder we'll keep having headlines like this on loan to the world. And we're going to be seeing more of them until we start doing the needful.
Rachel, I can relate this not just to the sport federation, but let's take a look at even the medical sector.
Exactly.
That's medicine. We still have our doctors that were made in Nigeria, but they are actually out there.
Yes.
And we cannot even make revenue out of them out there.
True.
Because they have decided to go there and where their effort will be appreciated. So we look forward to seeing, let us fix our own, system here. Make our, system stronger so that we can have all our stars back here, and then we can actually, have something out of them. If we want to make them loan, they should be able to have interest when we give them out there. So we will look forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the next paper, which is Nigerian News Direct. The big story is still on power crisis. Federal government eyes the AFDB's $250 million electrification project as explosion hit Kayenji and Jeba. Forces nationwide blackout, restoration of Greek at advanced stage still coming from the TCN. Other stories on the paper: uncertainty becloud resumption of Nigeria and UAE flights. You can find that on page 3. We have Tinubu, Sanwo-Olu, Abiodun hailed Adeleke at 80. Ogun local government fund councillors impeached suspended chairman Wale Adedayo over fund diversion mismanagement. All right, we have a call. Hello, good morning.
That the president is saying that Nigeria has no business being with poverty. So please, we are just waiting for him to walk his talk. Let him make it possible for Nigerians not to experience poverty. Hello? Hello?
Okay, maybe you can end the call and call us back again. We can barely hear you in the studio. Thank you so much, sir. Still on Nigerian News Direct, we have Syrup gives Unilag 48-hour ultimatum to revise the hike. You can find more on page 3. We remember the issue of the school fees where students took it to the street to actually protest. We hope that something will be done about that. FRS get new chairman as Nani retires after 5 years of material service. You can find more on page 3. We have to go through some of the achievements, and then you really agree that he has done so much. You can do well to find more on page 3. All right, let's take this call.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. I'm listening to the commentary and paper. My question is, that palliative, when will it start, and how will it start, and where has it started? I've never heard of it. That is number one. Then we are talking about Nigeria Super Eagles. You discover that Nigeria did not value our player. Akonji is a Nigeria that plays for Man City. Then Saka is taking. Because of the system of the government, things are not working well. The professionals are leaving Nigeria. That is the truth of the matter. Thank you very much. God bless.
Thank you very much for that contribution. He had a question concerning the palliative: when, where, and how. And I believe that that's the questions for many Nigerians also. Yeah, exactly. We said it. We are not seeing the transparency. So we are speculating and wondering what is happening. So that question is for the government of Nigeria to answer at every level, at the federal level, at the state level: when, where, and how. What are the statistics you're going to use to share this money? And we have another call.
Hello, good morning.
That we have no business with poverty. Let him walk the talk. Let us see him, put Nigeria on that platform that we not have any business with poverty. And also, on the proposal of creating the Ministry of Livestock. I don't know, I've been saying this, that a Nigerian government is always having a kind of a soft spot for headers or for people from the upper side. Okay, if they are going to create Ministry for Livestock, are they going to create Ministry for Crop Production? It will make nonsense of the Ministry of Agriculture. Because we have Ministry of Agriculture and that has departments that oversees both crop and livestock. So why are they going ahead to create Ministry for Livestock? I think it doesn't make any sense. Let them, the most important thing, just like Rachel said, if you create a ministry, that means you are now giving a permanent, a kind of permanent recognition to the clash, or to all these clashes that normally happen between the headers and farmers. Yeah, because the ministry is going to be permanent. This thing is what they should do is to solve the problem between the headers and the farmers, and then allow the Ministry of Agriculture to do their work as a ministry. Please, we are looking up to this government. We even though we don't like the way things are happening, we don't like even the outcome of the election, but we don't have any other country to go to. Nigeria is our place, and we have to be here and make sure that work things out. Let them please do the needful. fix the refineries.
Thank you.
If you think that Nigerians will not have any business with poverty, fix the refineries. Let oil be, fuel be refined locally. It will then help our foreign exchange. And this issue of dollar, whenever the foreign exchange market, whenever the price of dollar increases at the foreign exchange, it will affect our own economy. But when you have control of your own economy, because you're in control of the export and import of goods in your country, you will definitely control the poverty level of your country. Those are my contributions this morning. God bless Equative and God bless the Republic of Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Thank
God
you.
bless you, sir. Of course, it's one thing for the president to make a statement that we should be far away from hunger, and it's another thing for him to walk what he has said. And then concerning the exchange rate, something needs to be done about it, definitely also. And concerning the ministry, he just shared his own opinion concerning the government have a soft spot for headers, and if we are going to say there is a ministry, then it looks like it is a permanent problem that will continue to persist, but then just solutions around it.
Okay. What the PGP is telling the PC is not politics, because that's the issue of hardship. If something is not done by this time next year, the hardship may increase, because that fuel subsidy or this non-fishing refinery is the problem. Now, what I'm trying to say is that that's the statement that the PGP made on the side of that hardship on to APC. It's not a politics. They should adhere to that advice, because the hardship will continue to move if they couldn't fix the refinery, just like what the last caller said. Then my own advice and my contribution is that the palliative is not the ultimate. What is ultimate to fix the refinery, to reduce the hardship, because this money we are spending buying fuel and all those things. Some people are not getting it, and you must move. That's what I'm saying, that they should fix the refinery. If they couldn't fix the refinery by this time next year, fuel may be 1.5, because the dollar is controlling the fuel price. That is my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. The government should fix the refineries, because it will be able to control the fuel price and then subsequently bring it lower, because this is a good that everybody consumes regardless of your status quo, whether you have the money for it or not. You need to move. So let the government fix the refineries.
Well, we hope that all of this, the government actually taking into cognizance some of this point.
So.
And the last story on Nigerian News Direct, coming from Ondo State, police arrest 22-year-old suspended rapist and armed robber. You can find more of that on page 12. All right, we have another call.
The issue of palliative, because I've been speaking on this palliative of a thing. We don't need palliative. Nigerians don't need palliative. What they need is to do the right thing at the right time. One, I have been saying it on this channel. Let our refinery, let them fix our refinery. That is the greatest palliative we need right now. Because I was listening to news yesterday. I can't remember the state, one of these eastern states or so. They were bringing out palliative, the so-called palliative from the truck, and see women gathering there. They were sharing one bag of rice to 5 people. Is that palliative, my sisters? How long are they going to feed on that? 5 people to feed on that bag of rice. I know my house, how many bags of rice? We always buy every 3 months. It's unfair. The government are not being fair to us. 180 billion naira palliative. It will go down the drain like that of COVID-19. Some people have hijacked this thing. At the end of the day, you will see what I'm telling you. You will see where they have kept this thing. It's like when the customs they are seizing these goods. The other day at FOA, the Keja, see where they pack this rice, gotten rotty, everything. These are part of the palliative government ought to have released to the format after making inventory of all these things. Then why you fix a refinery? Today, people are suffering in the villages. Don't mind what is happening in town. People are suffering in the villages. The cash is not there. Apart from what they get from their garden and farms, they are suffering. Secondly, the words of our elders are words of wisdom. Our elders should mind the way they talk to the younger ones these days, because there is tension everywhere. It's tensed up, like Wole Soyinka was saying the other day. Words of our elders are words very much, my sister. God bless you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah,
no
thank you so much.
disputing
Please
facts.
try summarizing your point in a
Yes.
minute, please. Thank you so much. Thank
There's no disputing facts. This is another Nigerian saying that the palliative we need are functioning refineries, and also just as you hammered on Shoyinka, the words of our elders should be encouraging, not anything that could trigger violence in the country.
Of course,
Yes,
of course. Well, Richard, I think let's take a look at the next paper.
On the Voice of Liberty, Tinubu fires IRS chairman. Nami appoints Adedeji as replacement.
Thank you
And
very
in
much.
Plateau,
My contribution
GNI
is a sound
protest
of caution.
exclusion from First
There
Lady.
was an attack on a religious
Right.
institution,
Hello, good morning.
and now we have it in news again, what they did to escape. So the attackers ever announced to us when they are coming, we should be strategic. If there's an attack, then whatever you did that saved you can be multiplied discreetly. And I call on caution from the media too. It's not if a man has escaped danger, you don't begin to publish how he escaped. It is to be built on so that other people can escape in future. So I think we talk too much at times. Okay, we should really not tell details of why people are saved in Christ's face. That is my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Still on the Voice of Liberty, in Plateau, JNI protests exclusion from First Lady's 500 million naira palliative, says no single Muslim included. Funding universities is your constitutional obligation, ASU tells federal government. The big story, Greek collapse, nationwide blackout as electricity generation drops 93.5% to 273 megawatts. Restoration is at advanced stages. This is TCN assuring Nigerians. 4 killed, 18 abducted as bandits attack Sokoto village. And on food security, World Food Program to fight hunger in Nigeria with $2.5 billion, 21 million beneficiaries already captured. CNG berates Lekwood over comments on IBB. FCT demolition threat, Wike doesn't have executive powers. Ireti Kinjibe, this is a statement coming from Ireti saying that Wike doesn't have executive powers concerning demolition in the FCT. And that's all the news on Voice of Liberty.
Now, Richard, when you see story about food security, a lot of Nigerians will be expecting lots of, like, say, attention coming from the government, and they keep asking. Remember, we're yet to hear what happened to $800 million that came from the World Bank. We don't know what happened. Whether is that the money that was being used to give the 180 billion naira to the state, or is it a 500 billion naira that? So quite a lot of things. And you remember what I said about being accountable and being transparent. Now we're seeing here that 2.1 million beneficiaries are already captured.
Yes.
2.1 million. So that is like out of how many of our statistics right now in the country. So we're hoping that when such funds get down eventually, let us see it being used. People who have been captured, just like you're asking, how a lot of our callers ask, how do they intend to do this? If we have a social registrar, is your name there? Is my name there? Whose name is there? How did they come about all of these people? So we hope that more will be done. When you see the issue of food security, it's not just in Nigeria. The entire world right now has been, shook so much about the issue of hunger and poverty. So we hope to see proactive measure regarding to how this money will be used eventually.
Of course, it's always all about having a measure when it comes to sharing this. And we see that they have 22.1 million beneficiaries already captured. And I believe that this, if well done, then these 2.1 million beneficiaries should be able to benefit, because it's one thing for you to be captured as a beneficiary and it's another thing for it to get to you. So I just hope that with this, with the World Food Program will come up with measures that will make sure that these 2.1 million people truly benefit from it.
All right, let's round it up with the New Telegraph newspaper, where we are having mobile network operators in Dadima overstall 5.9 billion naira investment. You can start reading on the front page and continue inside the paper. And budget minister, Nigeria's second least in the world revenue to GDP ratio. How can we meet up? You can draw out to find more detail on page 26. We have the UAE Grand Domestic Carriers Choice Destination. You can find more on page 3. Tinubu sacked the FRS. Boss appoint Adedeji acting chairman. And on the presidential poll, Soyinka exhibit dual character. This is coming from the Labour Party. You can find more on page 2 and 5. Also, we are having Nollywood actress Cindy Amandi is dead. This is really a sad one for the entertainment industry. Another person going. You can read more on page 2 and 7. The big story for New Telegraph, we have growing poverty may lead to serious crisis. The PDP Board of Trustees is warning the federal government. Nigeria rivers have no business with poverty, coming from Tinubu. Pledges to reconstruct element axis of the East-West Road, says Wike, one of his trusted allies. You can find that on page 3 and 4. Also, we have on OPEC, we have forex fuel will continue to account for 80% of the global energy mix. You can find that on page 8. We have resolved 170,000 cases in 2 years. This is coming from the PCC. Farmers header clashes panel recommend creation of a livestock ministry. You can find that on page 5 and 29. Nigeria thrown into darkness after 421 days of electricity stability. TCN restore power, blames fire for the incident. Energy sector challenges require quick intervention. This is coming from the NAEC. We have the CBCN once tribunal petition concluded before swearing in new government. Forbid priests, concentrated persons from partisan politics. Say pitfall irregularities around the 2023 poll may endanger voter apathy. You can find more inside the paper. We have a study that ties hobbies to lower depression levels. So for those who are going through one form of depression or the other, and even before you have depression, it is advised that you get into something that you love doing, that is legit, that can boost, your mental health and make you to be stable. You can read more of that on page 26, and that is all a New Telegraph newspaper. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sally.
Thank you to all our callers who called on the show this morning and contributed very greatly to the, the stories on the paper. Thank you to our crew member, our producer, and every other person that made this program a success. Until we come here again, do have a blessed weekend ahead.